In today's video, we're diving deep into a massive debate happening inside the crypto world right now. A so-called PhD economist has come out publicly and claimed that XRP can never reach $10. According to him, he has done the math and believes the XRP thesis completely falls apart once you actually analyze the numbers. But the big question is this: did this guy actually expose a major weakness in XRP, or is this just another attention-grabbing attack coming from someone who fundamentally does not understand how the XRP ecosystem works? Because guys, when you really break this down, there are some huge misunderstandings happening here, and today we're going to go through all of it piece by piece. We're also going to discuss the biggest RLUSD mint ever recorded on the XRP ledger, why that matters more than most people realize, how it directly connects to XRP utility, and finally, we'll talk about the latest update regarding the Clarity Bill and why the timeline being discussed right now could become a massive catalyst for the crypto industry moving forward. So make sure you stay until the end, because there's a lot to cover today. Hey guys, welcome back to Whiteboard Crypto Update. In today's video, we will talk about XRP. So be sure to stay focused, as you surely don't want to miss out on this. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications by hitting the bell so you never miss any of our uploads. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. Now let's start with the main controversy. This economist comes out and confidently says he has calculated everything, and XRP simply cannot go to $10. And honestly, guys, whenever somebody tells you they have some magical formula that can predict the future price of any asset, that should immediately raise red flags. Nobody on Earth has a perfect mathematical equation that can forecast the future value of a technology, a stock, or a cryptocurrency. Markets are driven by innovation, adoption, psychology, regulations, liquidity, macroeconomics, institutional demand, and sometimes pure momentum. So when someone acts like they can sit in a room, plug numbers into a spreadsheet, and suddenly know exactly what XRP will or won't do years from now, that's already a very dangerous mindset. And here's the funny part. Economists historically get massive things wrong all the time. They miss recessions, they miss market crashes, they miss technological revolutions, and they massively underestimate disruptive innovation. So the idea that somebody can come out and say with certainty that XRP can never hit a certain price level is honestly ridiculous. Nobody knows exactly where this market is going. Nobody knew Bitcoin would go from pennies to tens of thousands of dollars. Nobody predicted Nvidia would explode because of artificial intelligence. Nobody saw companies like Monster Energy becoming gigantic market winners decades ago. That's how disruptive innovation works. Most people fail to understand it early. Now, when you actually analyze this guy's argument, it mostly revolves around two major points. The first one is the idea that Ripple is moving toward RLUSD and away from XRP itself. According to this argument, Ripple supposedly doesn't even need XRP anymore because stablecoins like RLUSD are becoming the focus. But this completely misunderstands how the XRP ledger was designed from the very beginning. If you go back years and years, even back to Ripple's early vision around 2013, the entire concept of the XRP ledger was built around issued assets operating on top of the network. XRP was never designed to replace every fiat currency on Earth. Instead, XRP was created to serve as the liquidity layer and the foundational asset powering the movement of value across the ecosystem. That means assets like RLUSD actually strengthen the XRP ledger rather than weaken it. Here's what many critics fail to understand. Stablecoins like RLUSD cannot function independently from the XRP ledger infrastructure. Every issued asset on the network relies on XRP at the core level of the system. XRP is necessary for transaction fees, liquidity functionality, and network operations. So when RLUSD adoption grows, that is not bearish for XRP. In reality, it increases the importance of the network itself. Think about it like this. The more institutions use RLUSD, the more activity occurs on the XRP ledger. The more transactions happen, the more XRP gets utilized. The larger the network effect becomes, the more valuable the foundational infrastructure potentially becomes over time. So the narrative that RLUSD somehow replaces XRP is based on a misunderstanding of blockchain architecture itself. Ripple intentionally built this ecosystem so that XRP sits underneath the financial infrastructure being created. And if institutions begin issuing tokenized assets, stablecoins, derivatives, stocks, or other financial products on the XRP ledger, XRP benefits from the growth of that ecosystem. That's the part critics continue ignoring. Now, the second major argument coming from this economist is the claim that Ripple constantly dumps XRP onto the market. And guys, this argument has existed for years. But here's what's interesting. Many of the same people making this criticism are huge Bitcoin supporters. And if you think about it, Bitcoin miners have been continuously selling Bitcoin into the market for over a decade. That selling pressure has existed since the very beginning of Bitcoin's life cycle. So it becomes very hypocritical when somebody says Bitcoin is perfectly fine, while simultaneously attacking XRP because Ripple sells portions of its holdings, especially considering XRP is designed with deflationary mechanics built into the system. Every single transaction burns a small amount of XRP permanently. Over time, supply gradually decreases through network activity. Meanwhile, the same critics praising Bitcoin often ignore the massive amount of Bitcoin continuously entering circulation from mining operations. So this narrative that XRP is somehow uniquely flawed because Ripple sells tokens ignores the reality of how virtually every major crypto ecosystem operates in one way or another. And honestly, a lot of this feels less like objective analysis and more like ideological warfare between crypto communities. There are many Bitcoin maximalists who simply dislike XRP regardless of fundamentals. That doesn't automatically make their arguments correct. Now let's move into something extremely important that happened recently. The XRP ledger just experienced the largest RLUSD mint in history, with 260 million RLUSD minted onto the network. And this is where things become very interesting, because this directly validates the utility of the XRP ecosystem. As adoption grows, XRP continues functioning as the backbone of this expanding network. More transactions mean more XRP burned. More institutional activity means greater demand for infrastructure. At the same time, we're also seeing XRP increasingly locked into institutional investment products like ETFs. Billions worth of XRP exposure is now moving through these financial vehicles. And what makes this situation unique is that XRP is deflationary while institutional demand potentially continues increasing. That combination creates dynamics traditional finance has rarely experienced before. You have a digital asset connected to expanding utility, growing institutional exposure, and decreasing circulating supply over time. Now, does that automatically guarantee XRP reaches some crazy price tomorrow? No, nobody can guarantee that. But the idea that XRP increasing 8x or 10x over the coming years is impossible also seems disconnected from reality. Financial history is filled with assets that massively outperformed expectations once adoption accelerated. The key factor is success. If Ripple successfully executes its long-term vision for cross-border payments, tokenized assets, institutional liquidity, and financial infrastructure, then XRP's valuation could look dramatically different in the future compared to today. And no economist on YouTube can perfectly calculate what that future adoption curve will look like. That's the important distinction here. Some people are trying to predict price strictly through spreadsheets while ignoring technological disruption itself. The internet changed everything. Artificial intelligence is changing everything. Blockchain infrastructure could become another transformational layer for global finance. And if XRP becomes deeply integrated into regulated financial systems worldwide, the value proposition changes completely. Now, before we finish, let's also discuss the latest update regarding crypto regulation, because this could become another major catalyst. Senator Cynthia Lummis recently discussed where things currently stand with the Clarity Act. According to the latest timeline being discussed, there could potentially be another major vote happening around July. Right now, lawmakers are still working through negotiations and reconciliation processes involving different committees and legislative details. But the important takeaway is this: momentum around crypto regulation continues building. The industry is slowly moving toward greater legal clarity. And if clearer crypto regulations finally arrive in the United States, assets like XRP could benefit significantly because institutional investors have been waiting for regulatory certainty for years. Large financial players typically do not move aggressively into markets filled with legal uncertainty. But once frameworks become established, that could unlock entirely new levels of adoption. So when you combine increasing institutional partnerships, expanding stablecoin activity on the XRP ledger, growing ETF exposure, and potential regulatory clarity, it becomes easier to understand why many XRP supporters remain extremely bullish long-term. At the end of the day, guys, nobody can perfectly predict XRP's future price. Nobody has a magical formula. Nobody has solved the market like some kind of financial fortune teller. The only thing that ultimately matters is adoption and execution. If Ripple succeeds in building a globally important financial infrastructure layer, XRP could eventually become far more valuable than most people currently imagine. Some people will agree with that vision, others won't. That's completely normal. But dismissing XRP entirely because somebody claims they did the math ignores how transformative technologies historically evolve. Markets reward adoption, utility, and network effects. And right now, XRP continues positioning itself directly at the intersection of institutional finance, blockchain infrastructure, and regulatory evolution. Well, guys, that's all we have for you today. What are your thoughts on XRP? Get involved and let us know in the comments down below. If you guys like this video, then be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Thank you for watching.